So here we are, September 2nd, 2017, setting off in the Highland Backpacking Trail in Algonquin Park. We both have 35-pound backpacks, and we are literally 1 minute into the trip. I guess I was relaxed in the car, and that's why I'm out of breath. So we are at the 90-minute mark in our hike. My fitness tracker says I burned 900 calories. And we have a beautiful day. It's sunny. The trail has a number of wet spots, but it's quite pleasant. And we haven't put bug spray on yet, although when I stopped to turn on the camera, I had to wave a couple of mosquitoes away that were making landing patterns around my head. So just thought I'd get in the picture for a bit, so it's not all Jenny. And so we weighed our backpacks before we left the car. No, we weighed them at home before we put things like fresh fruit and water and coats in. We were just over 35 pounds each, and so we figure we're probably nearing 40. So now, coincidentally, I've just run into a landmark. Here is the side trail that goes over to Faya Lake. Faya Lake is an incredibly popular campsite, which we have booked for our last day, but and that's the Monday night of the long weekend to Tuesday morning. We couldn't get it during the long weekend. You pretty much have to get on the internet to book it within probably hours, if not sooner, of the day you want it, and they only allow, I think, it's 5 months in advance. So it's very, very sought after. We are 2¼ hours into our hike. I've managed almost 1,200 calories. I'm a little under my usual average of 550 an hour. We haven't stopped for mosquito repellent yet, and it is starting to become a problem. So we are going to have to take a break soon and put some on. So break time. We're about 2¼ or so hours into it. It is so nice to take the backpacks off and put them down for a minute. Drink some of the water to lighten the load. We applied mosquito repellent finally, and it's a little bit breezy, and it's about like room temperature. Very, very pleasant. So when I'm facing away from the direction we're going, we get a nice long downhill once we get the backpacks on, so we will be nicely rested for a while. It's just beautiful here. Now we've got the bug spray on and the bugs aren't bothering us, and we're cooling off because our clothing got a bit sweaty. So we just came down the trail there. There's a fork. The trail goes that way, but there's a fork here. And there's a reason why there's a fork here. There aren't many options to wander off the trail, but this one allows you to go up on this rock. It's breezy, and it's daylight, and it's away from bugs, and it has a rather nice lookout. Now to get up here, I did a rather interesting climb where I was watching my fitness monitor and watching my pulse climb from very leisurely walking level pulse all the way up to 89% of its max. It's kind of neat. And so we're now at the, I believe last time I looked it was about 1,500 calories in climbing. And now I don't remember how far into it we are. It's a little less than 3 hours. 2 3/4 hours, I believe. So how you doing, Jenny?
Tired.
Yeah. Well, this is our break point. So we're gonna have a rest and just watch this world go by. No wonder. Wow. And it keeps going up and up. Oh, more goop to pad through. So, 4.5 hours and 2,500 calories into our trip, and we've reached Head Creek, and a little way down here it basically becomes Head Lake. So we figure we've got maybe 5 minutes along here and a further 10 minutes or so, maybe even 20, probably not that long, finding which campsite we want. And sometimes that involves going down the trail. And when you get to the last one of the series, of which you've booked one of them, any one of them, you realize which one you want to stay at. And it's not necessarily the one furthest down the trail even. It could be the first one you came across, so you end up hiking partway back. You'd think you would just stop at the first one set up, but no. We evaluate water access, how much we like it, how isolated it is off the trail, how clean the thunderbox is, and then finally stay at one. Or the other problem is there may only be one that people haven't moved into for the day. So anyway, we'll keep going for a while. So we came down the trail and found the second campsite, because the first one we didn't like, and put our backpacks here. And Jenny's gone, and she's through the woods there sitting beside the fire. We don't particularly like where the tent would go, so I'm going to walk ahead down the trail to the next couple of sites and see what I think of them. So I'm not carrying my backpack. Anyway, we're basically almost at the 5-hour mark and 2,700 calories. So we found our campsite, and there comes Jenny. Welcome to your new home.
I should keep telling myself, I can do it, I can do it.
Well, what was this, 13 kilometers? Well, okay, I did an extra kilometer going back to get you at the last campsite after I went ahead and discovered this was a good one. So, we have fire pit, lots of flat ground. Oh, you want, oh yes, okay, just a second. And nice water access. So let's get set up. So here we are on the first morning. It's a bit smoky under the tarp, but Jenny has boiled water and she has a coffee. And we have the stick stove, which is barely under the tarp. We slept all night and managed to keep warm. It got down to, last time I checked, it was had been light for a few hours, and it was 12 degrees, so it probably got to about 10. Forecast was lower, but we're set up with our tarps in a nice configuration. And there's this evergreen tree that got in the way, so it held up the tarp to make a standing room. And so when we got here, and we stopped at the first site and said no, and then we stopped at the second site and said, wonder if the next one's better. And so we took off backpacks. I ran ahead and looked in the site and said, oh yeah, this is way better. The last one didn't have any good places for tents. This one is just acres and acres of clearing and nice water access. So we, so I had to run back, and then Jenny and I both came back with our backpacks, and I kept the fitness tracker on for the making, or the purifying of the water, which involves a lot of running up and down the lake up to where I'm purifying, and gathering a bit of wood for the stick stove. And then I took it off and I was just over 3,000 calories. And I think we're about 5 hours into the trip. So that's the story to date. Oh yeah, and it's raining, by the way. That's why we're you can probably hear it on the tarp. And it's been raining since about midnight. It was off and on during the night, but it's been constant since just before dawn. It's been several hours. And it's a case of us just passing time and hoping this has a few breaks during the day. The forecast says it'll be like this till 7 tonight. Just because I have nothing else to do, I thought I'd make another movie around the campsite. We just started to get ready for lunch, although it's kind of like an hour early, but there's several things that have to happen in order to have lunch. This, by the way, is the one side of the tarp system over our campsite. And I'm doing this movie outside because it's not really raining. There's just drips coming off trees right now. So the other side involves a tarp that's sitting over a tree and tied up to another tree. And so we have this area that we can work on. You can see Jenny in there. She's doing some work with lunch. The tent's under there. And it's kind of nice to have tarp over the tent. It's more a case of keeping stuff outside near the tent. Were rain to fall on the tent, for the most part it does just fine. It's meant not to leak, and if it does leak you can buy sealant to fix that. So there's no point in bothering with a campfire unless you have tons of dry wood. That's my aperitif. I put it down to do the movie. It's what I call camp liqueur. It's because we don't really have mix. It's mostly filtered lake water. We had some very strong alcohol, there's this very concentrated mix you can get to put in juice or in water to give it flavor, and it's got electrolytes in it to recover from exercise. And there's also, you're not supposed to put it in alcohol, but I do, and it works fine if you just do a little bit. I put a little tiny bit, half a shot of Red Rain is what it's called, but it's basically one of those energy drinks. So I'm adding some caffeine to it that I would have got out of my Coke. So I'm trying to make rum and Coke out of dehydrated alcohol and flavor. Anyway, it's camp liqueur. It's reasonably tasty, and it works. You can see the umbrella there. Janie uses an umbrella, for instance, to go down and when she went down to the lake to wash her face and so on. You can hold it over you on the thunderbox. And it's raining so little right now that we aren't really getting very wet. And I am currently wearing it's a Coleman, well, it's a camp jacket. It's appears to be waterproof, but I haven't really given it a suitable test like in a downpour. But I've been outside quite a bit, and it has been raining, and lots of water has come off the trees. And the point is that when you look at the inside, I don't have any moisture. My clothing doesn't get damp or anything. And if you put a warm sweater under it, it's quite warm. And if you, like right now, the temperatures come up, it's no longer 11 degrees like when we got up. If you put a really good sweater on underneath, it's warm now, it's warm out, and so I have just a t-shirt on, and so it's not really an overly hot coat on its own. So anyway, the lake's down there, and you know, we can go down there to wash dishes, to get water, but I purified a whole pile of water. It's I know it looks dirty, it's because the container gets dirt on it from being picked up and put down, but it's a nice big 15-liter container. It had a lot more in it when we finished yesterday, but I dehydrated it, or sorry, filtered it when I was when it was a better time for filtering it. Nice warm day, and so I was getting good exercise hauling the water up to where the bag was that goes into the filter, and then gravity takes care of it all. This campsite, by the way, is on a lake where they have some canoeing campsites and some backpacking campsites, and so they label them so you know which is which, because you've only reserved one of the two kinds. So there we are. It's noon. It's barely raining, but there's so much water dripping off the trees, and if a tiny little breeze comes up, it blows off the trees. I don't know if you can see in this bunch of branches, there's droplets on the bottom of every little piece of stick, and every time a wind comes along, it all drips down. So I've got my camera in a protective coating. You may not be able to actually hear me, but I'm just following these two canoes that are canoeing past our campsite on a dreadfully damp, misty day just before lunchtime. I imagine they're colder than I am. I'm really glad I did backpacking and we're staying here all day during this rain, or it's more of a mist storm now. It's just a lot of mist, and it's gathering on the trees and dripping all day. So a raincoat does really well. So we just finished lunch. We're sitting in the tent only because it's a nice comfortable place to sit and eat lunch. That lunch was good. I know we were a couple of hours making it because we had to take the dried mung beans, and you have to like soak them and simmer them, and it's a big cooking process with just raw mung beans. But we did it, and then we still have half left. I did a third of one of those little bags you get in the grocery store, and wow, that was a big lunch. Anyway, so we've done that, and so we're sitting here contemplating the next step. We have to get, let's see, water. Yeah, you're gonna have a Spanish coffee for after lunch, so I need to get some water boiling, and then we can make a Spanish coffee with that. And the we're in the tent, so here's what it looks like. Oh no, I'm pointing the camera towards me. I have to change it. Hold on. Oh, you can't do that mid. Oh, okay. I'll have to stop. So here's inside the tent, Jenny and my legs, and we leave the door open because it may only be 15 degrees, but actually it's fine in here. And so there's the shoes on our doormat, and we put this rock here to use as a table, and there's a dirty pot and bowl and 2 spoons that need to be washed. And what else do we have here? Oh, another bowl to be washed. And okay, that bag has stick stove firewood in it, although we've been using that stuff that we cut up in the rain, and it's actually working fine. And then we've got, well, that holds all the pots and cutlery and stuff, and that's our food bag. And we're under the tent, or the tarp, so this is all dry. And so the stick stove is what we call idling. It's got all kinds of wood. You can see a little tiny log on top. It's full of wood, but it just isn't flaring up. So it's just sitting there idling until I get down to the lake, wash the pots, put on more water so we can make a Spanish coffee. And what else is there to show? Not much. We're in the middle of the woods. It's beautiful and desolate here. So we're here at our lake, Head Lake in Algonquin Park, and it's one of those days. One of those days. The ones where it's wet and miserable, but we're here all day. We don't have to go hiking anywhere. We don't have to pack up or set up camp. I am filtering water, a lot of it, to tide us through the rest of today and tomorrow. Jenny's standing at the lake admiring it. Oh yeah, and I'm standing at the lake and admiring it and taking a video, so there you go. I don't think much of what I'm seeing is coming out in the video, but it's all kinds of interesting textures on the water, as well as, of course, it's raining, so you've got little pools. I'm taking the video through my protective case that keeps it waterproof, and I have no idea whether the sound is coming out, but if not, then it's just a really boring video of a really depressing lake. Right, Jenny?
Right.
Right. So had been raining. I think it's between 17 and 19 hours since we went to bed last night. So it's dinner time and the sun's come out. We still have lots of water on the leaves and the trees, and every time there's a bit of a breeze, it starts dripping down. So except when you have nothing above you, you can still get wet. But a little bit of a breeze, which we have now, and things will start to dry up. Tomorrow sometime it's supposed to rain again, but we'll see how tonight goes. At least the evening is going to be without downpour, we think. So we're all packed up and leaving our vacated campsite, 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, and we have a half hike back to a campsite we're going to stay at tonight. And it's 90% chance of rain today, so we are all set. I don't know if I'll be able to show it, but I have a raincoat on the back of my backpack. It's a special designed thing to put on the back of the backpack to keep it dry, and I have a coat in the top that I can put on, a raincoat, if it were to start raining. So we've arrived at our campsite on Faya Lake. It's this peninsula of rock. It sticks out into the lake, and you camp on it. It's a good half kilometer down a side trail from the main trail, so it's very remote. It's very much sought after, because it's not actually that far into the whole trail system. So it's not a very wide peninsula. It's certainly big enough to have a campsite. So it just stopped raining just in time for us to arrive at the campsite to set up. I think nature's doing very well in cooperating with us. So it's after dinner, and I'm going to do a recap of what happened so far today. Did I mention that about a half hour after we left our previous campsite, it started raining? We hiked in the rain, then it came out sunny for a while, then then it started raining again, and we had to put on raincoats again. And what you're looking at here is the tarps Jenny's walking stick is holding up that piece of tarp so that we have a real big area to stand in. And then we have stuff here, and although the other piece of tarp goes downhill, it's pretty much standing room all the way down, but unless you're out there when it's real windy, you don't get wet. So we were able to do a lot out there. We did cooking, I did dehydrating water, what else? Oh, I stood there, because it's nice to stand up straight. So I've taken it down, but I had the water purification system hanging from this tree. I'd run down to the lake between rainstorms, grab the water, put it in, and then it would go down a hose into that bucket there. So morning on Faya Lake, it rained just a tiny shower just before midnight and then was clear all night. This is what it's like in the morning. A little bit of steam rolling off the water. And then it goes up above the trees as it rolls off the lake and goes off. This is what the waterfalls look like when we've had 2 very heavy days of 10mm rain. And there's already been a lot of rain leading up to this. When we walked in, there was actually a place in the middle that we could barely walk across, and now the whole lot's covered in water.